usual. This is take 3 or 4 at trying to get through this particular topic. I want to talk about zero tolerance in children because I saw an interesting article this morning. Actually, my wife tossed it to me. She knows the kind of things that piss me off, and she's more than happy to feed them to me. So, I want to talk about what this girl did, how people responded, talk about zero tolerance in general, and talk about what we're teaching our kids. Um, so this is the incident that kind of got things rolling this time around. This is off of CNN.com. There was no profanity, no hate, just the words, "I love my friends Abby and Faith. Lex was here, 2, 1, 10, with a smiley face. Scrawled on the classroom desk with a green marker." So, clearly a heinous crime. Uh, but if it's a heinous crime, it's probably one most of the people listening to this video have been guilty of at one time or another. Scrawling something about someone you like or dislike on a piece of school property somewhere. But it probably wasn't handled with you the way it was handled with like a little Alexa here. This girl, who by all accounts was a good, popular kid who had never gotten into any trouble before, was basically taken out of her class in handcuffs. Handcuffed in front of all of her peers, all of her friends, and then taken off to juvenile detention. She was suspended from school for 3 days, and I guess they said that she spent most of the time that she was out of school throwing up, from the stress of the experience. Um, so there you go. I get concerned about this as a way of solving problems in schools. I mean, I know that judgment costs money, and I mean that's why the reason you have things like zero tolerance, because that way nobody has to really think about the situation. You just have a decision rule, and if the decision rule's criteria are met, you just kind of engage the punishment, and nobody really has to engage in any kind of thought or reasoning or judgment at any point during the process, and that honestly makes things easier. Uh, and since we, routinely don't spend enough on our schools anyway, especially, schools where they have concentrations of difficult people, kids who are having a hard time making it, this is one of the ways in which they cut down on expenses. But I mean, then it starts to get totally out of hand. You have situations like this girl, but then you also have in Los Angeles, I guess they have tickets for truancy. And let me read you a little quotation from the same article. I'll post a link to it. The Strategy Center, a California-based civil rights group that tracks zero tolerance policies, found that at least 12,000 tickets were issued to tardy or truant students by the Los Angeles Police Department and school security officers in 2008. The tickets tarnished students' records and brought them into the juvenile court system with fines of up to $250 for repeat offenders. Now, this is once again an instance of like additional cruelty being foisted on people who are, already, in difficult situations. I mean, I think if we look at these, we don't even really have to look at any statistics. I mean, I can tell you for certain that the same people who are having difficulty getting to school on time, by and large, are the people who are going to be having, economic problems. They're going to be having, they're going to have trouble getting by, just in general. It's all part and parcel of one big societal problem. That chiefly being that there's not enough opportunity to go around. But all that aside, I mean, I just don't think you're going to be able to punish people into compliance. But what you will be able to do, and I think a couple of studies have already shown this, is that you can punish them into leaving the system entirely. And this is how it kind of, once again, dovetails with the problems that we have with the American educational system right now. Because of the emphasis on getting, high test scores, there are basically 2 ways that a school system can deal, with the problem of getting high test scores. They can either work on the kids to get them to get higher test scores. There are all kinds of problems associated with this, and I've dealt with some of those in other videos. But the other way, aside from getting the kids to do better on the test, that you can get your test scores to be higher, is to get rid of the kids that are underperforming and are dragging your test scores down. And a lot of people, do take this approach. And so they're not troubled if something takes students that are having a hard time and gets them to give up on the system, because that will increase test scores, and that will make them look better, and that means that they can retain control over their school and perhaps even get additional federal funds. This is how having fucked up priorities translates into policies that are going to end up leaving kids behind. I also thought it was funny because at one point in the article, there was one of these examples where you have of somebody talking about something, and it's clear just from their quoted remarks that they have no idea what they're talking about. This is a security expert, Kenneth Trump, who founded the National School Safety and Security Services consulting firm, said focusing on security is essential to the safety of other students. He said zero tolerance policies can work if common sense is applied. Well, the whole point, though, of having a zero tolerance policy is that there is no judgment exercised whatsoever. And you have no discretion. You have no, common sense being applied. You satisfy the decision rule, and then you invoke the punishment. Otherwise, it's not a zero tolerance policy. There's some tolerance going on. But, he allows himself to be quoted in a major publication, basically saying, this doesn't work. Or I don't know what I'm talking about, one of the two. I guess it depends on whether you assume he knows what he's saying when he's saying it. But there you go. And I worry about this because I worry about what we're teaching our kids by having these kinds of really aggressive, unforgiving policies for children. I mean, I remember back to my period in school. I thought it was great that my desk was all scratched up and had all these marks on it, because that was kind of the history that I got from the other students who had that desk. That I thought was actually fairly cool. I was always in love with school, but that I think was one of the cool parts about it. Being able to get into a new class, lift up the lid on your desk, and see the scribblings, the thoughts of the other kids who had that desk before you. And if they really wanted to, defang this whole thing, they could do what my son's school does. When at the beginning of the year, every year, once kids get up to the middle school level, they're allowed to paint their desks any way they want, put anything they want on them. And, I don't think it's really damaged anybody so far. It's something that the kids love, and, why shouldn't they have the desk look exactly the way they want it to? What business is it of anybody else's? I absolutely don't understand it. If they're ripping the leg off the desk so you can't use it anymore, that's one thing. But saying you love your classmates, being brave enough to leave a testimonial of that, on your desk, this is what we want to punish? What kind of lessons do you think the girl got about, how sensible, how fair, how not fucked up our society is? What do you think everybody in that class thought? What do you think a kid in the Los Angeles school district facing $1,000 in fines that he knows his parents can't pay, how does he feel about school, or she? What are we teaching? Because don't kid yourself. The shittiest school in the world teaches all the time, teaches every second it's open. You may not like what it's teaching, but it's teaching. Been Zach Elliott. You can always feel free to argue.